Tonight, we're gonna react to Fat Electrician, the M50 Ontos. I'm still sick. This is the best I've been all day, but I don't know how long the energy will last. Just as a warning. So, the bazooka tank, the M50 Ontos, the thing. As a disclaimer, I know a little bit about this thing going in. I know that it uses a cluster of recoilless rifles instead of actual bazookas, but same difference. Hope you get feeling better. Thank you, Blue Kitty. I know that it was actually deployed in action. In Vietnam, I believe. I know that it was used as sort of like a mobile artillery platform because it is very, very small and relatively maneuverable for what it is. I know that it has been described as, quote, surprisingly effective, but I do not know what the actual quantified surprisingly effective is, because I do know that it's because it uses a multi-barrel design. Conventional military wisdom kind of dismisses those. I am personally a fan, but time to get things started. Why don't things get started? It's time to get things started. Okay. Anyways, so when you get a multi-barrel design, generally the expectations are like in the basement. I don't know if surprisingly effective is, oh, it was okay, or surprisingly effective is, oh, it was amazing. I don't know which of those it is. Oh, that's Muppet Show stuff. Oh no. Also, hi. So yeah, I just know it's better than useless, basically, and was actually used. And I think that's the extent of my knowledge of this thing. So, without further ado, and before we get flooded again, though I mean I wouldn't complain if we got flooded again. Let's hit play.
I really thought that the Mark 19 was the most Marine Corps thing to ever be invented.
I already know I forgot to turn up my volume for you guys. All right, let's try that again. Surprisingly effective. It didn't sink the career of the general who convinced us to build it. So yeah, see, that's the thing. For something that I know conventional military planners say has no value, I don't know if it's just okay or amazing. The object thingy. A hallmark, the object thingy. A very appropriate name there.
I really thought that the Mark 19 was the most Marine Corps thing to ever be invented, but I was wrong because it's absolutely this.
Oh no.
Today we're talking about the M50 Ontos, aka the thing.
Of course it's a Marine thing. Yeah, see,
Okay, real quick, this video is brought.
my understanding of multi-barrel stuff is you now have a single vehicle that can fire volleys. That in itself should be a tactical advantage. Most military planners don't think so, but I think so.
Brought to you by Xaifax Custom Gaming PCs. They're built right here in America with American tech support. They have a lifetime warranty and they will do all kinds of crazy custom stuff if that's what you want. Here's a video of mine. Great, moving on. Okay, here's the deal. Once upon a time in the 1950s, the United States Army would set out to...
They are not sponsors, but I do have an affiliate link. That's pretty solidly Marine. Fair. It does look like a Marine project.
Answer. Great, moving on. Okay, here's the deal. Once upon a time in the 1950s, the United States Army would set out to answer a question that had plagued mankind for decades. What if we took a tank and covered it in fucking bazookas? And to aid them in this enormous feat of engineering fuckery, they would turn to the one demographic of people on the planet that could do this insanely childish and dangerous idea justice. The farmers, by way of Alice Chalmer, a tractor manufacturing company. Okay, if you're not picking up what I'm putting down,
As someone who grew up around farmers, if you can get them motivated to do something, they can do some crazy stuff to get stuff done.
The Farmers, by way of Alice Chalmer, a tractor manufacturing company. Okay, if you're not picking up what I'm putting down, I'm trying to tell you.
Up a bit more? Okay. Also, this isn't the first time that this was done. Give me a sec. I just want to... Sherman... The Sherman Calliope is a great example of other times this has been done. These were all these I know were hilariously effective for what they were. It's literally America looked at the Katusha and said, we can do that, but with more rockets. All right, back to the Ontos. John Deere made war tractors. Yep. I think John Deere also helped with this, I think. For those who don't know, Calliope is not a VTuber here, but a pipe... Okay, fair, yeah. Calliope, referring to a whistle organ, is actually what it is. Oh, Fat Electrician did a video on those as well. Cool. Good to know.
That the grunts and the farmers are going to come together and work on a grunts and crafts project. All right, it's absolutely going to get done. It's not going to be fucking safe, but it's going to get done and it's going to work. So they took the M56 light tank, ripped the turret off, threw that shit away, and then proceeded to weld on top 6 M40 106mm recoilless rifles. Yeah, technically they're not bazookas, they're recoilless rifles. There's a slight difference in how they function, but at the end of the day, as far as 99.9% of people need to be concerned, it's a giant metal tube that you point at the enemy to blow them the fuck up, aka it's a bazooka. Plus, bazooka tank sounds way cooler than recoilless rifle tank, so that's what we're going with. Now, I think we can all agree that welding 6 of these on top of a single vehicle is mildly ridiculous in the best way possible. However, it only gets worse from here. Because why don't you go ahead and ask me how they aim this monstrosity? I mean, look at it. It's got 6 different barrels. None of them are anywhere near each other. Clearly, it's going to be a nightmare, if not impossible, to aim this thing accurately, right? Wrong. The farmers and the grunts got together and said, we'll just use a spotting rifle. They then proceeded to mount a 50 caliber rifle on top of every single bazooka barrel, and then they would just fire 50 caliber tracer rounds until they started hitting their desired target. Then they would fire the bazooka. They're literally aiming a giant gun with a slightly smaller giant gun. I don't even know how to begin to write a punchline for that, so I'm just going to go ahead and...
Oh my! I mean, he's not wrong. This would be to the enemy. Thank you for the mana, Rippy. Very appreciated. Yes, I have seen the Doom Turtle video. I should have reacted to it. I didn't. I regret it. That's why we're reacting to this. Nope. I've got nothing else. Continuing on.
Imagine you're some anonymous bad guy held up. I mean, could you imagine how confusing this would be to the enemy? Imagine you're some anonymous bad guy held up in a house or in a building somewhere, and this fucking monstrosity pulls around the corner as your butthole puckers and you realize that this is probably going to be the longest, shortest day of your life, and your new pronouns are about to be here, over there. And then this thing aims at you, fires, and it blows a nice little hole in the wall next to you as you're like, I mean, it's not good, but it's not nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be. So the farmers finished up the prototypes and took it out to Aberdeen Proving Ground with the Army and the Marine Corps, at which point they promptly said, fire all 6 at once, we want to see what'll happen. And the sheer amount of backblast from that knocked bricks out of the wall of the bomb shelter they were in and shattered all the windows of the vehicles they used to get out there. And it is at that point that the Army said they were no longer interested in having this vehicle due to the sheer amount of backblast, and they really did not like the fact that somebody had to get outside of the vehicle to individually reload each recoilless rifle after they had been fired. The Marine Corps, on the other hand, said, I'll take 300. The Marine Corps ordered 300 of these fucking things, which is terrifying to think about. I mean, to be honest, and it pains me to say this, but as far as logic goes, I actually have to side with the Marines on this one. The Army's over here bitching like, you could get shot at while you're trying to reload. And the Marine Corps is like, we've been getting fucking shot at since 1775 without a bazooka tank. Imagine how much fun it's going to be with a bazooka tank. And I mean, to be fair, what the
Oh my gosh. He is 100% correct. And here's the thing. The Army did get on that same page because that is 100% the exact logic behind the tow missiles mounted on the Bradley. You have to get out to reload it while there are enemy tanks around shooting at you. But now you have tow missiles instead of just a small autocannon. And so, you know, the Army did get the message eventually, at least. Oh, that cough managed to. One sec. I as usual. But yeah, the Army did figure it out that, you know, hey, sometimes the boost in firepower is worth the risk that comes with reloading. And there's plenty of stories about and reports about Bradley crews having to run out while surrounded by enemy tanks in like Desert Storm and shove more missiles into the tow launcher. Hopefully, and doing it, but now you have tow missiles while getting shot at instead of just getting shot. Exactly. And the thing is, the Bradley crews, you know, the reports are about them. They fire their 2 shots, then they have to run, grab the missiles, shove them into the tow missile launcher, and they were doing this faster than the Iraqi tanks could get their guns to bear and shoot back at them. Have you watched Laserpig's videos? I've watched some of them, and I do have some on the list, but I'm not doing any of them right now because they're longer, and I don't know how long I'm streaming tonight. And in the right risk, maybe you aren't going to need to worry about being shot as the enemy is blown the heck up. Also true. Also true. You fire all your available shots at the people most likely to shoot you, and then reload while the other people figure out what's going on.
Without a bazooka tank, imagine how much fun it's going to be with a bazooka tank. And I mean, to be fair, what the fuck is going to be left to shoot at you after you shoot the first 6 gigantic bazookas that general direction? And even if somebody was still alive...
That is also another point. You've got 6 rapid fire shots, either all at once or in very rapid sequence, faster than even an autoloader is going to give you. Whatever you're shooting at is in a very bad place at that point in time, if not just pieces. So, to be fair, the Iraqi tanks were Russian surplus that even Russia didn't want to keep, even in museums. That is fair, but I mean, they still had, among other things, auto-loading mechanisms. And it was faster to get out of the tank with a missile, shove it into the launcher, and run back into the tank than it was for an autoloader to load the next shell. And yeah, like I said, he makes a great point, and this is kind of a point that I stick to about the idea that fire off a volley of shots, and then you're not, you know, faster than just a rapid reload will get you, and your problem is probably solved. Don't the Bradley crews have a roof hatch to reload the tow launchers without having to completely get out of the vehicle? I don't know if they had that during Desert Storm? The first Iraq War. I do not know if they... I think that was added. I think you're right that they added that, but I don't think they had it at the time. I'll have to double check. But I know that at least one time when I was listening to someone talk about it, he specifically talked about standing on the back of the tank, or the IFV, shoving missiles into the tow launcher. So either they didn't have the hatch, or it was still faster to just get out.
And they did have big enough balls to pop their head up to try to shoot at you while you're reloading, you still get to shoot at them with your spotting 50 caliber fucking rifles and the 19 30 caliber machine gun on it. Like, it's a win-win. And I know what you're all thinking, but how did it perform in real life and not just on the chalkboard? Thank you so much for asking. It was first deployed in 1964 to the Dominican Republic during Operation Powerback, where it promptly destroyed both the tanks that they ran across, that being the AMX-13 and an L-60. And then after that issue was
I like AMX-13s. No, those are fun. I don't know what they were doing fielding those against it though. But the AMX-13 is a neat little speedy tank. Please? Yeah. AMX-13 is a neat little speedy tank. But yeah, the ability to just volley off shots, I can kind of see why. But I think this actually has like a proper autocannon, not just like, I think if I remember correctly, this technically has a revolver in the breech, so it can fire really quickly, just not fast enough, I guess.
And an L60. And then after that issue was resolved, all 300 of them were promptly sent to Vietnam. Okay, here's the kicker with that. There was no established battle doctrine for this weapon. There's no rules, there's no standard operating procedures, and there was no Marine Corps MOS that was designated as being responsible for this weapon, meaning there's no one guy that's like the expert. They literally took 300 of these fucking monstrosities, gave them to the Marine Corps, and said, here's your bazooka chariot, kids, have fun. Shit got out of hand. You're so dumb. If you knew anything, you'd know that during the Vietnam War, the Viet Cong had virtually no tanks, meaning that a tank destroyer like this would be virtually useless. Yeah, not quite. Ladies.
Mobile artillery, as I said before. You just load it with high explosive and turn areas into parking lots.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the Beehive round, aka the Flechette round. Each one of these had 10,000 hardened steel darts inside of them, and when fired, they went fucking everywhere. And this weapons platform can fire 6 of them at a time, meaning that this thing can turn and proceed to shoot 60,000 fucking nails in your general direction, okay? When the trees started talking, they weren't talking for very long. The Ontos was so dominant on the battlefield that—
oh my gosh. Yeah, 6 of those with that is... oof. There is tanks still use a variation of the Beehive round, but I don't think it uses the same method anymore for 2 reasons. One, the flechettes don't penetrate quite as well. 2, with 10,000 flechettes instead of fewer others, they tended to give the people firing the gun problems seeing what they were doing to people, basically. Yeah, I think they went back to the more traditional canister rounds of basically firing giant ball bearings.
The enemy began actively avoiding it, meaning that the Marine Corps loved it because when this thing was anywhere near them, they were very seldom, if ever, ambushed. And in your general direction, okay? When the trees started talking, they weren't talking for very long. The Ontos was so dominant on the battlefield that the enemy began actively avoiding it, meaning that the Marine Corps loved it because when this thing was anywhere near them, they were very seldom, if ever, ambushed. And not only was the Ontos effective in—
this is 100% the reason why I believe in psychological warfare. The idea that even if you do create a crazy expensive thing, that you sit there and go, oh my gosh, this is not the most practical thing. If it absolutely terrifies the enemy to where they just go someplace else when it shows up, as far as I'm concerned, it has done its job. And if they're going someplace else, that reduces the odds of it being destroyed and thus reduces the odds of it costing you even more money. So I think that stuff like that can actually pay for itself in a different way, just in terms of the psychological effect of having a, quote, super tank, as I guess we're calling the Ontos. The idea, if the enemy doesn't want to fight you, you still won because you showed up and they didn't. Yeah, I have rounds. Ooh, when someone wants to upgrade chain rounds and decide the area should be more cone of effect instead of a line, indeed. If you want to watch another Grunts and Crafts project, watch his gun truck vid. Oh boy.
in jungle warfare, but urban warfare as well. During the Tet Offensive at the Battle of Hue, which is one of the only examples of heavy urban combat to happen during the Vietnam War, the Ontos would prove absolutely dominant. Not only was it highly effective against fortified enemy positions, but it was extremely effective at convincing enemies to evacuate buildings. You see, at this point in time, the enemy was already intimately acquainted with the Ontos and knew how it operated, so all the Marines had to do to get an entire building to clear out was shoot the 50 caliber spotting rifle through the window a couple times, and all of the enemies would, and I quote, scurry out of the building like rats when you turn the lights on, because they knew what was going to come next after that 50 caliber round. Unfortunately,
still proving my point. Still proving my point. Watch more Flat Electrician up to... Yep, Flat Electrician is being added to the list of things we're reacting to.
The lights on because they knew what was going to come next after that 50 caliber round. Unfortunately, the original 300 M50 Ontoses would be the only ones ever created, and after the Vietnam War, the remaining ones would all be turned over to the US Army, where they would be decommissioned, stripped down, and sold off to construction companies as tracked vehicles. Luckily, however, some of them did make their way into museums where their legacy is still preserved today. In conclusion, in the 1950s, a bunch of farmers and the United States Marine Corps came together to work on a grunts and crafts project, and what they created was so childish, so ridiculous, and so devastatingly effective that it could only be characterized as the thing. Thank you for watching. Best way to support the channel is go buy some merch at thefatelectrician.com. Quack bang out. I wonder if I could fit a bazooka tank in here.
That's... So I guess surprisingly effective is the most effective ground vehicle in the war. Okay, cool. That... And I also just thought of another thing. Another example of this stupid, expensive thing that just makes people surrender. Back to the Desert War again. First Iraq War. Battleships were actually rolled out to do bombardment runs. To just show up and just fire volleys and watch the destruction. They were using early drones in order to... Hello and welcome! Yep. Yeah, the AK-50 video is a long time coming, very welcome. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so they were using an early primitive spotting drone in order to aim the giant guns. Well, the Iraqis started to learn that if they saw that drone in the air, they were about to get blown to pieces. So whenever they'd see the drone, they'd just come out of the buildings with their hands up. There might not be anyone for them to surrender to. You know, they'd then have to quickly try to helicopter people in and stuff. But when they saw that drone, they knew the battleship was about to start dropping very large shells on their position. And they just decided, nope, it is not, I am not getting paid enough to get shot at by a 16-inch naval gun. So that's another example of that psychological, the weapon just has to be present to do its job. You don't even need to pull the trigger.